Now let's say you just started out, not much cash in your space pockets, in the pants that you probably don't wear anyways, but you still want to take part and participate in PvP or casual NPC space pew-pews on a budget. That, or you simply don't want to see eye-watering rebuy screens that would make even your wallet weep, both in-game or, worse, real life. Well then, I got 4 near-identical ships for you to pick from. What used to be cheap and cheerful combat bunch with each interesting pros and cons, thanks to engineering, has dwindled to a barren waste of boring choices. Or is it? Federal Assault Ship, Imperial Clipper, Chieftain, and now Mandalay compete for the 20 million budget peasant king of combat. And today I thought we could take a look at each early mid-game ships to see where they differ, which one you should pick, and how, most of all, engineering changed all of it. Now let's start off with the before times, the Neanderthalic, prehistoric, naive times of 2014. Elite Dangerous releases, and each ship it contained had some sort of a role or niche to fill. None of them were left out. More importantly, combat was a lot more balanced. Yes, you didn't have weird overpowered weapons and ships, or at least not to that level. Now, sure, Ferdland still dominated, but Python kept up far more than it is today. And the same thing happened in the budget zone of 20 million. You had Federal Assault Ship, an extremely compact, combat-dedicated, maneuverable, but somewhat slow hull tank. And opposite of it, you had the glorious and fabulous Imperial Clipper, a large-sized multi-role ship with same offensive capabilities, more speed, but less turning rate. Both of them complemented each other, and both were locked behind a stupid and monotonous faction navy rank. Separately, so not a lot of people actually got these things for PvP, instead opting to simply go for Python and Furtherlands instead, which in retrospect feels extremely stupid design. Hey, let's put an early mid-game ships behind the end-game level of grind! Genius! Either case, before engineering, these two competed with Furtherlands at times. However, after introduction of the mega power creep of engineering, the faults of each got exacerbated. While after engineering, Assault Ship held on, it was hard-pressed to compete with Furtherlands due to its speed and small shields, while Clipper had a worse fate. Thanks to the Clipper being a large ship, not only it was easier to hit by default, but also due to the shield regeneration feature that puts large ships at a disadvantage, further reduced Clipper's viability, to a point that it was so far outclassed that only use for it today is a nimble and pretty mining ship. Now that's just sad. And then one day in the mail we got a box of nails for Clipper and fed ass ships coffins. They called it the butt cheek tan. Basically with the same stats as fed ass ship, but with 2 extra hardpoints offering more flexibility and overall damage for the same price and with a better pitch speed, not to mention the biggest advantage, no faction navy rank unlock requirement. All of that combined pretty much instantly obsoleted both Federal and Imperial mid-game darlings. Still, it had its own faults, like the top speed for example being notably lower than both of them, so there still was some room for the 3-way fuckfest to see which one would come out as a budget king. Although let's be frank here, Clipper was out of the running since 2015. And even with that said, Chieftain is still very good for anti-Xeno combat, due to the weapon selection and power distributor. And then we finally come to today, with the 4th and cheapest entry into the orgy of fabulous hobos, the Mandalay, the most maneuverable medium ship, second to only Asp Scout, the king shit of Shit Mountain. However, Mandalay sported a very different maneuverability profile. While fed ass ship until that point held the second best yaw turn rate speed, Mandalay handily beat it. And then on top, the more pips to engines, the better it would move. More specifically, while rest of the old ships would gain about 15% more turning rate speeds, thanks to 4 pips to engines, Mandalay gains 50! That's just insane! Now granted, Mandalay is not even supposed to be a combat ship, yet it's here, competing. Then again, Clipper was also here, but we all know what happened to it. So not like it's unprecedented. However, what is unprecedented is Mandalay's non-combat stats. Jump range being the biggest of all ships in the game. And it also competes in combat? What's next? The best ship in the game is Jack of all trades? Still, when it comes to the combat fuckfest, Mandalay, despite the great maneuverability, is notably weaker than the TheYamiks, both in the weapons and health. However, what really puts Mandalay in the nerd corner of shame is the power distributor the most. Basically put, Mandalay is power starved to compete with the 3. To utilize the turning speed, you have to have 4 pipset engines at all times. That leaves shields and weapons more starved than usual. But if you decide to sacrifice the speed and turning for either one of them, the poor class 5 distributor can't keep up. Unless of course you're running some sort of efficiency build, which by itself won't stand up to prolonged fights either. But that said, Mandalay, despite all the faults, at least ideally is an exploration ship first. I think? I guess? But at the same time, it's so powerful and capable that it starts to encroach on combat ship territory like a horny furry in any convention. So then, if you have a choice between all 4 of these ships, the 2 faction rank ships go out of the window straight away, due to the grind necessary to unlock them in the first place. So then that leaves Chieftain and Mandalay. So which one should you choose? Now this one's a rather harder and more interesting choice. On one hand, Chieftain has a lot more damage and capability to output it, but it's slow, like really slow, and you're gonna be struggling to max out the speed to keep up with everyone. While Mandalay on the other hand struggles from backbreaking power distributor problems, yet at the same time having a lot more speed and turning rate, not to even mention a lot larger shields. So it's basically like a fight between 2 cripples. But fact of the matter is, in a straight up fight, Mandalay will be dictating the flow of combat because of that extra speed and maneuverability. And of course the cherry on top is that massive gigantic jump range. So for pure utility and some extra combat, Mandalay would be my pick still. And sure, it acquires a different flight style, the yaw pitch style, but it's just so comfortable to fly. So it's really hard to argue against something that is that OP.